I'm so happy you're here today for another deep dive into the teachings of A Course in Miracles. We've reached Chapter 16, Section 6, and we're going to explore something that might be the most hopeful and also the most misunderstood concept in the entire course, the bridge to the real world. Let me start with something you've probably felt, but maybe never put into words. You're living in two worlds at once. There's the world you see with your physical eyes, the world of bodies, conflicts, gain, and loss, where nothing lasts and everything eventually dies. And then there's something else, a sense, sometimes fleeting, sometimes stronger, that there's another way to see all of this. A reality underneath the chaos, a peace that has nothing to do with circumstances, a love that doesn't depend on getting what you want. You've probably touched this other world in moments. Maybe when you looked at someone and saw past all the defenses to something innocent and beautiful. Maybe in nature when everything suddenly felt connected and meaningful. Maybe in meditation when the constant mental noise just stopped and there was only presence. These moments are glimpses of what the Course calls the real world, and they show you that where you normally live isn't the only option. But here's the problem. Those moments pass. You come back to the normal world with its problems, fears, and endless demands. And over time, you might start to think those glimpses were just your imagination, or that the real world is some distant spiritual achievement you'll reach after decades of practice, or maybe after you die. The gap between the world you know and the world you sense seems impossibly wide. This is where most people get stuck. They know something else is possible because they've felt it, but they don't know how to get there. They don't see a path. They don't understand what would actually bridge these two completely different ways of experiencing reality. So they settle. They accept that life is mostly struggle with occasional moments of peace. They resign themselves to the ego's world and call those rare glimpses of something more spiritual experiences that visit but never stay. The Course is saying something different. It's saying there is a bridge. It's real, it's accessible, and you're already standing on it whether you know it or not. But, and this is crucial, the bridge isn't what you think it is. It's not made of practices or achievements. It's not built through years of meditation or perfect behavior. It's not something you earn or deserve. The bridge is made of something so simple and so available that the ego has convinced you it couldn't possibly be the answer. This section is going to show you what that bridge is, why you haven't fully crossed it yet, and what's actually involved in making the crossing. And I'm going to tell you right now, this might challenge everything you thought spiritual awakening was about. Because the Course isn't talking about leaving the world or transcending your body or achieving some altered state of consciousness. It's talking about seeing this world, these relationships, these daily experiences completely differently. The real world isn't somewhere else. It's here, now, available to be seen the moment you're willing to let go of the ego's interpretation of what you're looking at. But that letting go requires something specific. It requires what the Course calls holy relationships, and most of us have no idea what those actually are or how they function as the bridge we've been searching for. Here's what I want you to understand before we go deeper. You're not broken because you haven't reached the real world yet. You're not failing because you keep slipping back into ego perception. The bridge exists because you need it, because you're not ready to just leap from illusion to truth in one instant. The bridge is the Course's compassion for where you actually are, not where you think you should be. Today we're going to walk across this bridge together. We're going to see what it's made of, why it works, and what waits on the other side. Let's begin. Let's talk about the world you see when you open your eyes every morning. The world of traffic and bills and difficult people and aging bodies. The world where you win sometimes and lose sometimes. Where you get what you want and feel good, or don't get it and feel bad. Where love seems to come and go. Where everything you care about is threatened by time, change, and death. This is the world you've learned to navigate, and most of the time, you don't question whether it's real. It just is. But the Course makes a staggering claim. This world is the ego's fabrication. It's not real, and I know your mind immediately wants to protest. I'm looking at it right now. I can touch it. How can you tell me it's not real? But stay with me, because the Course isn't saying the forms you see don't exist. It's saying the meaning you've given them is completely false. Think about it this way. The world you see is a world of separation. Billions of separate bodies, each one isolated inside its own skin, competing for limited resources, protecting itself from threat, trying to get what it needs to survive and be happy. Every relationship is ultimately a negotiation between separate interests. Every conflict is about whose needs matter more. Even love in this world is often just need dressed up in romantic language. This is the world the ego shows you, and it teaches you that this separation is reality. But here's what the ego doesn't want you to know. You're seeing this world through a filter, the filter of guilt, fear, and judgment. You're not seeing what's actually there. You're seeing your own thoughts projected onto a neutral screen. The world you see is literally your own mind shown back to you. And because you've been thinking with the ego, what you see is the ego's world, a world where attack is real, where bodies define you, where loss is inevitable, and where love is always fragile. Now contrast this with the real world. The real world isn't a different place. It's the same forms, the same situations, the same people, but seen through completely different eyes. It's what you see when you let the Holy Spirit interpret what you're looking at instead of the ego. In the real world, you still see bodies, but you see them as communication devices, not prisons. You still see differences, but you see them as variations on one theme, not as evidence of separation. You still experience time, but you see it as a classroom for learning, not a march toward death. The real world is perception purified. It's seeing without judgment. It's looking at the same situation that used to trigger fear or anger and feeling only peace. It's encountering the same person who used to make you defensive and seeing only innocence. This isn't denial. You're not pretending problems don't exist. You're seeing through them to what's real. So why does the gap between these two worlds seem so impossible to cross? Because you want both. The ego has convinced you that you need its world, that if you let go of judgment, you'll be vulnerable. If you stop defending, you'll be destroyed. If you see everyone as innocent, you'll be taken advantage of. The ego tells you that the real world is beautiful but impractical, lovely but dangerous, peaceful but naive. And so, you stand between two worlds. One foot in the ego's illusion, one foot reaching toward the real world. You want the peace the Course promises, but you're terrified to fully let go of the ego's protection. This is why you need a bridge, because you can't just jump from one world to the other. You need something that allows you to cross gradually, releasing your grip on illusion piece by piece, until one day you realize you're standing completely in the real world and wondering why you ever thought the ego's version was worth keeping. The bridge exists because of your fear, and it's made of the very thing the ego told you to avoid. So what is this bridge actually made of? The Course gives us a clear answer that most people completely miss. The bridge to the real world is made of holy relationships, not solitary meditation, not years of spiritual practice alone in a cave, not transcendent experiences or altered states. Relationships. The very thing the ego uses to keep you trapped in illusion becomes the mechanism of your escape. Let me explain why this is so brilliant and why it has to work this way. The ego's entire world is built on the foundation of separation. Every problem you experience, every fear you have, every conflict you encounter stems from the belief that you are separate from everyone and everything else. So how do you undo separation? By experiencing union. And where do you experience union? In relationship. But we need to be clear about what a holy relationship actually is, because it's not what you think. A holy relationship isn't a relationship where everything is perfect and there's never any conflict. It's not a relationship where both people are spiritually advanced or never trigger each other. A holy relationship is simply a relationship where you've asked the Holy Spirit to be in charge instead of the ego. That's it. That's the transformation that turns a regular relationship into part of the bridge. Here's how it works. In a special relationship, the ego's version, you're using the other person to get something. Maybe validation, maybe security, maybe the feeling of being loved. The relationship is a transaction. You give to get. And when they don't give you what you need, you feel betrayed, angry, abandoned. The relationship confirms separation because it's based on two separate people trying to fill their separate needs. But when you bring the Holy Spirit into that same relationship, everything shifts. You're no longer asking, what can I get from this person? You're asking, how can this relationship serve truth? You're willing to see the other person differently, not as someone who owes you something, but as someone who is exactly as lost as you are, exactly as frightened as you are, exactly as desperate for love as you are. And in that recognition, something miraculous happens. The separation starts to dissolve. This is why you can't cross the bridge alone, not because you're weak or inadequate, but because the bridge itself is made of joining. Every time you choose to see someone with the Holy Spirit's vision instead of the ego's judgment, you take a step across the bridge. Every time you forgive instead of attack, you move closer to the real world. Every time you choose peace in a relationship instead of being right, you're literally building the bridge by walking on it. The Holy Spirit is your guide in this crossing, and His role is essential. You can't do this with ego vision because the ego can't see the real world. It's like asking a blind person to guide you through a visual maze. The ego doesn't know the way because the ego's very existence depends on you not finding it. So you need a different interpreter, someone who can look at the same situation and show you what's actually there instead of what the ego wants you to see. When you're in the middle of a conflict with someone, the ego shows you an enemy. The Holy Spirit shows you a call for love. When you're hurt by someone's behavior, the ego shows you attack. The Holy Spirit shows you fear. This reinterpretation is what allows you to cross the bridge. You start to see that everyone is doing the same thing, either extending love or calling for it. And when you see that, separation becomes impossible to believe. But here's what makes the crossing challenging. You have to let go as you walk. Every step across the bridge requires releasing something the ego told you you needed. The need to be right, the need to be special, the need to be validated, the need to control outcomes. These have to be surrendered, not because they're evil, but because you can't carry them into the real world. They're made of illusion, and illusion can't survive in reality. So what actually happens when you reach the other side? What is life like in the real world? This is where the Course describes something that sounds almost too good to be true, but stay with me because this is the most practical part of everything we've discussed. First, understand this. The real world doesn't mean you stop having a body or living in time and space. You're still here. You still have relationships, responsibilities, daily activities. The forms of your life don't necessarily change at all. What changes is how you see them, and that changes everything. In the real world, perception is purified. This means you look at the same situations that used to trigger you, the difficult person at work, the family member who pushes your buttons, the circumstances that seem unfair, and you feel peace. Not because you're suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is fine, but because you're literally seeing something different than you used to see. Where you once saw attack, you now see fear. Where you once saw malice, you now see confusion. Where you once saw enemies, you now see people calling for love in the only way they know how. This isn't intellectual understanding. This is actual perception. You look and you see differently, the same way you might look at an optical illusion and suddenly see the other image. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Judgment ends in the real world, not because you're trying really hard not to judge, but because judgment stops making sense. You see everyone as either extending love or asking for love, and both are innocent. When someone is extending love, there's nothing to judge. When someone is asking for love through fear or attack, you recognize their suffering, and you don't judge suffering. You respond to it with compassion. This is what it means to see without the ego's filter. The ego constantly evaluates, good or bad, right or wrong, better or worse. It ranks and compares and judges every single thing. But in the real world, that whole framework dissolves. You're not above judgment looking down on it. You're just not interested anymore. It's like being offered a food you used to love, but now makes you nauseous. You're not resisting it. It just doesn't appeal. Now here's something crucial. You're still in form, but not of the ego. You still make decisions, take actions, have preferences. But the motivation is completely different. You're not trying to prove anything, protect anything, or get anything. You're simply allowing love to extend through you in whatever form is appropriate. Sometimes that looks like setting boundaries. Sometimes it looks like walking away from a situation. Sometimes it looks like staying and serving. The form varies, but the content is always love. People often misunderstand the real world as some kind of spiritual bypass where you stop caring about anything or become passive. That's not it at all. You might care more deeply than ever before. You might take more effective action than you ever did from ego motivation. But you're not attached to outcomes because you know that everyone is safe, everyone is loved, and everything is unfolding exactly as it should for maximum learning and healing. The real world is also described as the gateway to heaven. This is important. The real world isn't the end of the journey. It's the last step before you remember who you really are completely. It's where perception becomes so purified, so aligned with truth, that the gap between perception and knowledge becomes almost imperceptible. You're still aware of the body, still functioning in time, but you're also aware of something eternal, unchanging, and completely at peace that exists beyond all of it. Living in the real world means you carry peace with you everywhere. Not because circumstances are always pleasant, but because you know circumstances can't touch what you really are. You extend love not to get love back, but because love is what you are and extension is its natural expression. You see everyone's innocence because you've remembered your own. This is the promise. This is what's waiting on the other side of the bridge. And the bridge is here, now, in every relationship where you're willing to choose differently. We've explored the bridge to the real world today, and if you're feeling both hopeful and uncertain, that makes perfect sense. The ego wants you to think this bridge is impossibly far away or incredibly difficult to cross. But the truth is simpler. The bridge is made of your willingness to see differently in relationships, and that willingness is available right now. You don't have to cross the entire bridge today. You don't have to see perfectly or forgive completely. You just have to be willing to take one step, choose one relationship, where you're willing to see the other person through the Holy Spirit's eyes instead of the ego's judgment. Choose one moment today where you respond to fear with compassion instead of attack. That's a step across the bridge. Remember, the real world isn't somewhere else or sometime in the future. It's here, waiting to be seen through purified perception. It's the same world, the same life, but seen without the ego's filter of fear and judgment. And every holy relationship, every moment you choose, joining over separation, takes you closer. The bridge exists because you need it, because the gap between illusion and reality seems too wide to cross in one leap. But relationship by relationship, moment by moment, choice by choice, you're already crossing. You've always been crossing. The only question is whether you're willing to cross consciously with the Holy Spirit as your guide. Thank you so much for being here today and for your willingness to explore these profound teachings. If this video brought clarity or touched something true in you, I'd really appreciate it if you'd give it a like and share it with someone who might benefit from understanding the bridge to the real world. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so you can continue this journey through A Course in Miracles. We're going deeper into these teachings together, and having you here makes this work meaningful. I'd love to hear your reflections in the comments below. What resonates with you about the bridge to the real world? What comes up when you consider that holy relationships are the path home? Share your thoughts. I read every comment. Until next time, remember, the bridge is here, it's real, and you're already on it. Keep walking. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.